good day, good afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hey, what's up, y'all? It is MCM, and you're listening to You're Probably Right podcast. And it is I, again, just you and I. I really appreciate you showing up and listening to me again, as usual. You know, I've had some thoughts about my podcast and my content and the things that I've brought forth since I've been doing the podcast. And you know, it's funny, sometimes you have some misgivings, you have some not you but you know what I mean. Sometimes you second guess yourself, and it's like, I'm here thinking, man, maybe I should get rid of some of those earlier podcast episodes where I was certainly unapologetic in many instances, or my takes on certain things in society and whatever it is. But you know what? I'm going to leave it exactly where it is. So if somebody wants to cancel me, well, guess what? I'm not really on anyways. I just think about the society and cancel culture and all that stuff. And, I think about cancel culture because I wonder, like, at what level is it going to come from me? And, how will I handle being canceled if, this podcast really blows up? And it's really funny, life has me looking at life a lot differently. And it has to do with the loss of certain family members in my life. And I've talked at length about them. But it's funny because it's like the older I get, it's like the less I care about outside opinions, people who really don't matter, people who are really judgmental or really stuck on their opinions and could give a damn about your opinions, but theirs is valid. Like, if you've ever discussed something really serious with somebody, sometimes they really don't care what your opinion is. They just want their opinion heard, and that's all that matters. And it's like, it's sickening, honestly. It's sad and it's sickening. It's depressing. It's disheartening. It literally, it's repulsive. And I can't tell you exactly what I am talking about, but understand it is me and you. And this is You're Probably Right podcast. And you're welcome at my house anytime. So for you, or those of you who are doing work while listening to me, those of you who are on your way to work, and those of you who are actually at work or on your way from work, I appreciate and I value each of you. And understand this. Even if we don't have the same beliefs, the same ideologies, the same type of critical thinking, or you're heterodox, like, you have a different way. We have a different way of just interacting with the different so-called stimuli in this world. I appreciate all of you. You know, as I have said many times, you know, I am a Christian. I have Christian values. And for some reason, sometimes people of other belief systems or ideologies just put this bigoted sign over Christians' head, not knowing who we follow. In other words, Christ went to the lowest of the low in social status, in society, and he ministered to them. He taught them. He didn't just leave them off to their self and care about the upper crust of society or the social climbers or the middle class or the up and comers. He came to the lowest of the low and he served. He washed his disciples' feet. So I say that just to say that it doesn't matter if you feel that I take some sort of higher stance or some type of a snooty, upwardly stance on certain things, or you might look at it just as a Christian view. However you look at it, it's not that I'm taking this and I'm higher than you, because I believe, as I told you many times before, all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. In the heart of man, we are desperately wicked. We're always one move away from doing something absolutely against everything that many of us as Christians stand on and would shout from the mountaintops. There's also those valley experiences, and we don't all come out unscathed. What is this thing? I just wanted to check something for a second, y'all. Just bear with me. I was listening. Let's see. It's kind of messed up. Let's see. Hearing from. Well, I lost it. Well, too bad. Can't talk about that. It was actually a concept about hearing yourself from the inside, and how some people have to actually practice to hear themselves from the inside. And I actually am one of those people who sometimes I'll hear my knees crack from inside my head. Sometimes, or not sometimes, if somebody said they wanted me to take my heartbeat from inside without actually feeling my pulse on my neck or my wrist, I can actually take my heartbeat from inside, because I can literally feel it, or like I know it. I'm not hearing like a boom boom, but actually if it's quiet enough, I can even hear that. It doesn't have to be after running a block or two or something. It's like I'm just that in tune with my insides. And it's not called interoception. Was it interoception? Let me just check. Sorry, it's just a very interesting. It's funny when people say that things are very uncommon and you find out that you happen to be one of those people. Is it interoception? Let's see. Interoception, if I could spell. Is that what it is? Yes, that's what it is. I'm pretty good, huh? Interoception. Interoception is contemporarily defined as the sense of the internal state of the body. This can be both conscious and non-conscious. But yeah, it talks about that and your mental state. And I was actually going to read into something, and then I didn't even, for some reason, oddly enough, or maybe not, I interrupted myself from reading the whole thing. I planned to lie down and sleep and read it before I went off to bed. But I got sidetracked and I lost the website. How smart of me. But I will be checking it out later. I'm going to check it out with you. You can check it out. It's very interesting if you happen to be one of those people who can literally, after a minute, tell somebody how many times their heart beat. They say there's some people who will lose count here and there, and then there's some that are people who are totally in tune, like me, who can hear it all the way and count them accurately. Now, I don't know if it's going to tell me that I have some type of mental illness, but because I didn't read the article. Yeah. Interoception. Check it out. So, something's really been bothering me. And I know I've told you guys many times, I try not to make my podcast so time-stamped, so sensitive to the time in which I'm actually on the mic. But in this case, it's going to be a little bit different. But not really. You know, as I sit here in the dark with just the light of the laptop, I think of the various things that have happened in society lately, and let me just take this sound off out of my ears. Sometimes hearing myself actually throws me off a little bit when I'm talking. It's weird because I get caught up in listening to myself. But a few things that have happened in past, let's say the past 20 years, I guess. We've had 9/11. Many of us obviously weren't there in New York when it happened, but the constant replays on CNN that day and those weeks and those months at that time, you know, you remember ground zero, you remember plumes of smoke, you remember people running out of building covered in soot or whatever it was. You remember the falling man. You remember so many different things. People jumping out of buildings. Like that whole time. Like if you were around that time, or if you, I guess even if you watched a video on it or YouTube video, whatever it is. The blackout. It was like the eastern seaboard. Now I can't even remember how long it was. I can't even remember when that was, to tell you the truth. I'm sure I could easily, I wonder if I could easily pull it up. Let's just see. Maybe you know, because you knew something was going on at that time, but I can't remember. Eastern Seaboard, because that's what they called it, right? Eastern Seaboard, yeah, blackout. Ooh, there was one in 1965 too, by the way. It was 2003. It seems like it was 2003. Somehow it doesn't. Yeah, that makes sense. And you know where I was? yeah, it was August 14th. I was actually paying my. Here's the joke about it. This is all gonna come full circle, I suppose. But I just clicked on me. But I was actually paying a Rogers bill when the blackout happened, oddly enough. And I remember standing in the store while everything was blacked out, and they said, sorry, we have no power. And that this was very fresh, obviously, because it just happened. And did I take the bus? No, I drove up there to the store. And they said, okay, if you can hang around for a little bit, we can hope that it's going to come back on. But I mean, I think I stayed there for maybe 25 to 30 minutes just to realize like everywhere was blacked out. And that changed everybody's lives. People came outside late or didn't after, like, I mean, the first few nights, I think people came out late and you could see the stars so bright in the sky because there was just no power. Everything was blacked out where I was living at the time. And it was weird. It's like people were making sure that they kept their freezers closed because there was a certain level of freezing that would be kept if you could just keep your freezer door closed. It would keep your stuff cold inside there. And if you had a lot of groceries, which we had a good amount but not too much, you know, you had to concentrate on that. And you know, we were all wondering, when is this gonna when is the lights gonna come back on? Do we have enough gas for the cars? And I'm sure you have your own memory of that. And then there was the ice storm of 2012 here in Toronto, and I'm not sure how far widespread that was, but I remember that there was literally ice on the frozen branches and tree trunks of all of the trees, and many were heavy laden with them, so much so that they broke off, and it destroyed so many trees. It got rid of trees that people wanted to get rid of, and then it also got rid of trees that people were hoping to keep. And it was really interesting. People were chopping down random trees and saying it was damaged by the ice, but no, they just wanted to clear some of their yards, and it was an interesting time as well. And then there was COVID, and how everything shut down. Nobody could go anywhere. You were told to stay off the streets. You were told you couldn't go to church. The schools were closed. Workplaces were closed. And that was a time, 2 years, really. And to this day that I'm making this episode, people are still wearing masks, and it seems like it's here to stay. And then, just recently, we had the Rogers shut down. And here's how it affected me, because it was so fresh. I woke up to a message from my cousin, and it was about pictures at my sister's funeral. And he's out of town. He's in England, and he was wondering, I think, if I had gotten pictures or whatever the case was, which I didn't. I couldn't focus on taking pictures, nor asking anybody else to take pictures, because, to tell you the truth, I could care less if anybody else was there. All I knew was my little sister, who is actually my big sister, but I call her my little sister, my little big sister, has passed away. And you may remember that I've spoken at some length about her illness and what has happened, and the antecedents and the precipitating factors into how she dealt with her illness and why the illness probably prevailed in the way that it did on other episodes. And, that's would constitute me having to take a small hiatus or break from doing my podcast. But I realize it is important for me to get back up on the saddle and actually do it, because there's a level of therapy, I believe, in me doing the podcast and speaking to you. And, when I do my podcast, I like to envision my listeners as just one single person doing their thing. And, I'm speaking directly to you and hoping that you're understanding me. And yeah, so when the blackout, it felt like a blackout. I felt so disconnected right away. I realized now I'm not a Rogers customer, but I am a customer by way of Rogers, so I was affected. And then there was the lucky people who were Bell customers, but of course all the people that they would call were Rogers customers. Or, luckily enough, I had cash on me. I also had a credit card, but at the grocery store where I went to early that morning, there was no debit transactions. You weren't able to do it. You weren't able to call anybody. You weren't able to text anybody. You were only able to use a Visa or a MasterCard or something, or cash, which I had both, luckily. Now, I usually don't carry cash. Which brings me down to basically the topic of this episode. And it's your physical copies. It's funny because, me and my son were out there and, we got our little stuff here and, I was going to barbecue or whatever. And, we were looking for some entertainment, but of course the TV's on Rogers. And so there's no TV to watch. There's no YouTube. There's no cell phone. There's no messaging. No phone calls, unless you happen to be a Bell customer or a Freedom customer. For those of you that realized that you had service, some people didn't. But the cloud life, this whole thing really brought me to really realize about the cloud life and physical copies. And when I say that I'm considering music, I mean, I had to turn the radio on to have some tunes in my car, except for the one thing that's some Spanish music or whatever it is that's in my HUD or whatever it is, the HDD, the hard drive, whatever it is on my car, which I don't want to hear that music at all. So I had to put on AM and FM, AM to hear the news and FM for some music, which happened to be working, luckily. So I could actually find out what was wrong. I thought it was my phone. I turned it off and on a few times thinking, oh, my phone's just not connecting to the Wi-Fi. And, oh, it's not connecting to the network. And, oh, maybe there is I didn't even think for a second that the whole service was down. I just assumed that maybe something had happened to the cell phone tower, and that's why I wasn't able to get service. So, but I mean, it wasn't that much long after I found that it was just that Rogers was totally out, and it affected so many different businesses and situations. Now they think they're going to reimburse everyone. Apparently, they're up to 5 days now. They're going to reimburse people 5 days of service. Now, let's just say, let's see. Hold on. 5 days of service they want to reimburse people, they say. Hang on one second. I thought I had something interesting here. Oh, nice. Okay. But yeah, let's just say your bill is $140 and you pay that for every 30 days, right? So we divide that by 140 divided by 30 equals 4.6. So are you telling me that they're going to give me $40.60 and that's what's like it's worth to them, and that's what it's going to be worth to me? $5 off my bill? I mean, they're going to have to do it for a lot of people. And it's millions of people who are out their service. And I don't know what that millions, I don't know if it's in the tens or what it is, but that's a lot of money for them. That's like easily $50 million. just for a few days of no service. That's going to be rough. It's going to obviously change the complexion of the CRTC and service providers and all that. Like, I honestly believe that because they're kind of rigged up to the same system, if one of the companies loses connectivity, or some dude goes in the dark and yanks on a wire and pulls it out and can't figure out which one he pulled out, and it's costing everybody else their businesses and transactions and interest rates and all kinds of other things and communication and 911 of all things, that there should be some kind of compensation for something like that. But I think that it should just trip everybody over to the bell and bill the company that has the mishap, and the company that is running should be able to take on everybody else. But I mean, who knows? Maybe it would overload their system. I really don't know how all that works, but it just makes you think. So as far as entertainment was concerned, it was like, wanted to watch a movie, but everything's on the cloud now. Everything's on Netflix. And I, for the longest time, avoided going to Netflix for anything. I didn't even know how Netflix worked probably for the first 2 or 3 years of like really mainstream Netflix watching. I think about, like the movies and the files and the pictures and the videos. I'm a person who likes my physical copies. So not so much with the music, because I don't want to carry around so many discs, but it's really true. And I was there thinking, like, where could I get music if I wanted to have some music? And I realized I do have a hard drive with probably over 2,000 or 3,000 songs on it. And this was back in the days when, not proud of it, but where you could download huge music files. What were they called? Torrents before. And what I used to do is I used to DJ for my website, and it was a website that was dedicated to making mixes for people to work out to. And what I realized first for myself, of course, that if I mixed certain really, really good music that had the same beat or could be sped up or slowed down slightly, but the right time signature and everything, that I could literally make a mix that would, if somebody would say they used the treadmill and they used it at 5.5 or 6.6 or 6.7 or whatever it is, I could literally get music that would not time their beat, they would match their beat, their pace on the music. So I would literally go to the BPMs and adjust it and make it all nice for a person to run to. And that was basically the basis of my website, and along with some interesting talks. But yeah, I had a lot of music on hard drives that I could technically crank out again. But it was more about what I was going to do with my time. Like, I wanted to watch something, and because I'm a movie buff and I have a lot of movies, I luckily could just, I was thinking of watching a movie, matter of fact, on Netflix, and guess what? I already had it on hard copy anyways. There's many movies that I watch that I can say, yeah, I'll watch that again in 19 months or whatever it is like that, and keep myself interested that way. And it made me crack out, break out a few of my. And I have a few booklets with CDs in it. There's probably around 100 between the two cases, and then I broke out another little box that had probably another 100 or so movies, and then I still had 2 huge ones which I haven't even touched. But I always felt like it was better for people to keep their hard copies of stuff. Cash, I consider that a hard copy of currency. Movies, discs, I consider that obviously a hard copy of having movies. CDs, if you have music. Files, or pictures, it might be better to just literally have the ones that are made on film paper that you can rifle through. There's been times in my life where I've had a lot of picture and video files on my phone, and I've either lost them or half lost them. The incident where I walked into the sea in Jamaica with my phone in my pocket and I was wearing cargo pants, or sometimes I just get frustrated and I just literally swipe over a whole bunch of things, and I just say, you know what? It's like I feel like a prisoner of this information because I have it and it's mine, and there's certain things that I really, really want, and then there's a lot of stuff in there that I really, really don't want. And there's been times when I just delete everything. That's me. And I know a lot of people can't do that. That'd be like crazy for some people. But what's crazy would be crazy for me is for me to sit there and try to rifle through 760 pictures, of which I probably want to keep 47. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not me. But if I had physical copies now, they could just be rifled away somewhere. And if someone wants to go through my old pictures, maybe even when I've passed on, which ended up happening for my sister, it was hell trying to find pictures of her on different people's phones or wherever, archived where they weren't even in proper digital format. And it's funny. It was funny how many pictures we really found of her, considering how much she hated taking pictures. You know, she was the least vain person I knew, you know. But yeah, I was just thinking about this cloud life, and I wonder, you know, how many of you are thinking of the same thing. So I pulled up a website, of course I did, right? And it says the 10 disadvantages and risks of cloud computing. And this is on a website called fawn.pub. Don't know what that is, but here we go. And it's faun.pub. It says 10 disadvantages and risks of cloud computing. It says, have you ever asked where exactly does a company store all the data until the activities of the virtual world? What is that? Okay, whatever. The answer is cloud computing. Cloud computing is where information is permanently stored on a server on the internet and stored temporarily on a user's computer or client, such as a desktop, tablet computer, notebook, wall computers, handheld sensors, monitors, and others. However, there are disadvantages to cloud computing, and behind this technology, before it's explained, let's see about cloud computing overall. What is cloud computing? Now, do we really want to get into it all? I'm not going to get into it all, but let's read the end of it. It says, it is clear that every system has a disadvantage and advantage, and cloud computing is not an exception. Its advantages for business, such as minimizing public infrastructure investment costs so that businesses can be more focused on aspects of functionality. CAAS services enable rapid development and implementation of applications to increase productivity, open new markets for information technology development services industries. Increased use of these SaaS services will increase the use of internet bandwidth and also integrate applications with various devices. However, everything has its weakness, including cloud computing. Right, cloud computing pros and cons are debated to its users. What are the disadvantages of cloud computing? Let's see. There's supposed to be 10 of them. Let's see. There is always a risk that user data can be accessed by other people. So somebody might steal your information, like your passwords, your credit card information, your date of birth, mom's maiden name, all that stuff, good stuff that they ask you to store your stuff. Somebody could literally get into that and find it. You know, we tend to use the same few passwords in most cases, most of us. Some of us are smarter and we try to write it down so we can have a few of them. But for us lazy people who use the Chrome key or whatever that thing is called, that has a list of passwords and usernames. It depends on internet connection, and that's what happened to everybody with this Rogers shutdown or blackout or whatever you want to call it. The internet is the only way to cloud compute. When there is no internet connection in your place or in the internet path to the cloud provider is in trouble. And that's what we found out. It's like you couldn't do anything. You couldn't text anybody. You couldn't phone anybody. Even if you had a phone, I guess you didn't really need another phone, but you realize that you really don't know very many people's phone numbers at all. You couldn't watch anything to find out what was happening. Probably some people thought it was like the, like, who knows? They probably thought it was a rapture. It was like you were totally, totally cut off from anyone who was not literally in earshot of you, or you couldn't walk over to them or their house. It was disheartening, to say the least, for me at least. I know that. Now, this is where the biggest obstacle is happening in developing countries and remote areas that do not have good internet access. So in other words, everybody else is moving forward because we got internet access, but third world countries, not so much. The level of security, number 3. Secrecy and security are amongst the most doubtful things in cloud computing. Exactly. Because it's like, who owns this cloud? And isn't it just your information? And who are they giving it to, selling it to, bequeathing it to? Do you understand? Like, these people aren't going to be around. Whoever, wrote up these agreements or contracts or terms of use and all those other things, they're not going to be around forever. Eventually, it's going to be passed down to someone. And we don't know who those people are, or what diabolical plans, or what kind of malevolence they have planned for us and our information, or when they will start using it against us. For you, those of you who, listen to music that other people don't know you listen to, or watch movies or video clips of things that people didn't know you watched, we don't know when they're going to start turning that back on us. But I mean, it's all out there. In reality, it's all computed. What you watched, where you watched it from, how long you watched it, all that stuff. What you listened to, who is singing it, what kind of information, what information you're putting out into the algorithm or into the metaverse. Number 4, compliance, which refers to the risk of level of compliance, deviation from the provider against the regulations applied by the user. Yeah, and you can get kicked off. So you could think you have all this stuff on a website, and next thing you know, they ban you or block your whole account, and you can't even have access to your own stuff. And I've seen people get banned and blocked for things that they didn't do, things that were totally innocent, or something that they just happen to get caught up in, vulnerable in the event of an attack. There are lots of arguments against cloud computing, one of which is computing because the cloud computing work system is online. Each component that is on the cloud computing can be exposed to a wide range. This is wide open opportunity for attacks and data and activity stored on the server. Data mobility, which refers to the possibility of sharing data between cloud services and how to retrieve data if one day the user makes a processing terminating cloud computing service, and there is local storage where the data can be used at any time as needed. There's technician problems, there's human error, customer service, is it 24/7, low connection where it's just you have a hard time and things keep glitching or freezing. Like, I was looking at CP24, the news company up here, and even when they were talking about people not getting full service, their actual broadcast was freezing at the same time while they were saying that not everybody's been fully restored, and it happened to be that they weren't fully restored. Let's see. What type of business gets impacted by cloud computing? Yeah, you can imagine what happened with places like Amazon and top retailers who, it was only credit card or cash. Many people only use debit. There's so many things that I really, really encourage everyone, if you have an opportunity. For me, somebody like me, I'm going to go out and pick up all the movies from, say, a thrift store that I want, that some things that I always wanted to see, some things that maybe the discs were busted or not, or scratched or whatever it is like that, and I don't happen to have a resurfacer in my back pocket, which would really be useful. But I may have to buy and replace some CDs for such a time as that. It just makes you wonder about where everything's going and how we don't have physical copies of anything anymore, and our lives are just out there. And really, it's no fun. I wasn't really going to get into it, but even speaking about the funeral that I attended, which was my sister's, and which I pretty much put together for her with little help here and there. One thing I would say to you listeners, especially you young ones, I know this is a total different topic, but I'm asking you, I'm begging you, even if you're from the age of 20 to 30, and you figure, fame, I'm gonna live forever, I'm gonna learn how to fly high. No. Please get life insurance. Things can be so different if you sacrifice the present for the future, for your loved ones not to have to figure it out. When and if you pass away suddenly, or you're stricken with deadly disease, wouldn't it be nice to know that you're going to close your eyes one day, but your loved ones were going to be taken care of and you had a part in that? Now, I know most and a lot of people in my community, the Black community, don't, especially at young ages. But I know that some of us do, which is great. But don't think just because you're a youngster and you're not on your final career, you're not set up exactly right, that you can't afford to pay $40 a month for a pretty good life insurance plan so that people can bury you, so that maybe there might be something left over for your kids, or whatever the case is. It's important. Speaking about the funeral, because I might as well talk a little bit more about it. Somehow it's like I feel like I was here since it happened, but I realized that it's like the whole thing was just so surreal that I'm pretty sure I didn't do my last podcast. I did do one talking about her passing. And I know I did one before that about how dire the situation had gotten. And I know there was another one or another couple where I was talking about how it was discovered that she had the life-threatening illness. But, it's just such a serious thing, cancer. It definitely takes families by storm, even if it doesn't necessarily take the actual patient victim by storm, because in many cases the person knows they have something long before they tell anybody else, or anybody else discovers it many times, or before a doctor declares it, or diagnoses it, or gives a prognosis. But I talk about my sister all the time, and I say that I really fully expected her to be around after I was gone. And to tell you the truth, I used to worry about her all the time, saying, who's going to take care of her? Where's she going to live? She's working at home. She's been a caregiver for my parents and my sister, and what's going to happen to her? And next thing you know, she falls over from a seizure because she's been hiding an ailment, which in turn is found out to be cancer. And it was certainly devastating for me, because growing up, she was so important, more important to my life than I realized. And now that she's gone, it's like I can't even fathom it properly. It goes to, in my mind, like, where is she? Oh yeah, she passed away. I saw the second the last breath left her body. After carrying her from a chair to her bed, I kissed her on her forehead. I told her I loved her. But she's really gone, and I can't explain it to you. It's like half of my brain blocks it out, that it's actually reality. It doesn't make any sense. But that's just the way it is. Yeah, it's really, really hard to digest for someone like me. And, you know me, I don't really consider myself the most normal. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. It's hard to believe. I can't explain to you. I've heard people say, oh, it's so surreal. But it's like, it's for real. She wasn't supposed to die this early. She was way more healthy, eating horribly healthy things. From oil of oregano to stop this or that, to seriously tea, to us bringing home fried chicken and her boiling it and boiling all the impurities and flavor out of it at the same time. So many different foods that she was allergic to. And then just to think that she could have taken and eaten all of those normal things and more helpings if she wanted to, but she didn't. She led a chaste life, a selfless life, a serving life. And the result just doesn't make any sense. Now, it may make sense to some of you out there, but if you knew exactly how my sister lived, and yes, we understand that cancer just comes for whoever it wants to come for, regardless of how physically fit you are, whatever the case is, or how obese you are, whatever it is, it just comes. But it just doesn't make any sense. And I can't even explain why that is. And with my sister, I was literally speaking to her a minute or so before she passed. She was cognitive right up until the end, properly. And there was proper conversation. There was no squeamish, no complaining of sores, even though there might have been a couple. It's really funny. But it's not funny. So, as I said before, I'm encouraging you, young men, young women, if you have the opportunity to get insurance on a low price, I am begging you, MCM is begging you, please pay for it and get it. Don't fraud it. Don't fraud the system. Just get your insurance. Tell a loved one that you love them with your actual lips. Say it. I love you. Whatever your name is. Don't say whatever your name is though. And care for one another. Anyhow, this is a short one, but not so short one. And this is MCM signing it off. And this is your Probably Right podcast. Take care, and I will talk to you next time. Peace. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 dogs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self-help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while, understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey, maybe you'll find your own private Idaho here somewhere. Hope to see you soon.